Major event under the James Buchanan era is going to be one of the most infamous, if not the most infamous, court case at the Supreme Court level, known as Dred Scott versus Sanford. Dred Scott was a slave owned by an army doctor, and this army doctor does what army doctors do: they move around. And eventually, what you will see is they move from the South, they go into Illinois and Wisconsin. Illinois was a free state, and he goes into the Wisconsin territory, which was free. In fact, they would be living in what we would today called Minnesota. But nonetheless, Scott is going to sue his owners for freedom, for his freedom, when they try to bring him back into the South. Mainly because of the fact that there are cases before this of slaves moving into a slave's territory, free territory or free state, suing for their freedom and getting it granted by the courts. Well, this court, so Dred Scott and his lawyers are going to think, well, this case is going to be an open and shut one. Well, unfortunately, through a complicated and convoluted route, it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, where Roger Taney, of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, is going to be deciding. Taney is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that follows John Marshall, and he's been on the court since the Andrew Jackson period. It shows you how long a Supreme Court justice can last on the court. But nonetheless, Taney is going to write the decision, and basically it says, number one, that Scott is a slave, and therefore he has no constitutional right to even sue in the court. And he should have just stopped there. But Taney's going to go on further. For example, he's going to say that blacks do not have any rights that the white population should respect. That's going to be part of the decision. And the most controversial part is going to be that that the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. That all territories must allow slavery within the state, within its borders. Mainly because of the fact that the Missouri Compromise violates the Fifth Amendment. How so? Well, when we think of the Fifth Amendment, we always think about the right against self-incrimination. But one of the parts of the Fifth Amendment says that you cannot be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process. There's a difference between me shooting you and killing you. There's a difference between that and the state doing it. The difference is that the state is going to put me up on charges for killing you, and therefore I will be deprived of my life through due process. Whereas in our hypothetical example, I deprived you of life without due process. That's why murder is a crime, but execution is legal. But nonetheless, the Missouri Compromise is going to violate the Fifth Amendment, according to Taney, because of the fact that there's no due process when you cross over that 36-degree 30-minute line. Being deprived of your private property because of a borderline, that's not going to be due process. Now, that's what the court rules, but what's more important is the reaction between the North and the South. The North is going to be horrified. The best example of this is going to be Abraham Lincoln himself. Lincoln is going to basically say that we are one court case away from having slavery be allowed in free states. Now, I don't know, I'm not sure whether or not he knew it or not, but there was certainly a court case coming up that actually was going to deal with slavery in free states. So is it paranoia? Maybe. Is it him knowing that there is a court case that may determine that free states cannot bar slavery? Maybe. I don't really know. But nonetheless, this is his reaction. We are one court case away from obliterating the differences between slave and free states. The South, of course, is going to be overjoyed in the fact that now no longer do we have to worry about slavery not existing in these territories because of going over a borderline. Rather, there's always going to be a chance that slavery is going to be there. In fact, it's going to be guaranteed to be in these territories. So that's what makes Dred Scott versus Sanford so controversial, in terms of the fact that you have two sides of the issue and they're reacting very, very differently from one another.